Just going to press the broadcast button and then we can go ahead and kick us off, okay?
Could we do introductions first so I know everybody that's here?
Sure. We can go ahead and do that. And you said you wanted to do that on the broadcast so that other people could also meet everyone, right? Councilwoman Penrose?
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah, sure. I'm fine with that. Bob, is that okay with you?
Sure. You want me to go first?
Let me go ahead and broadcast. Jason, you can start recording and we're going live, folks. Okay, the webinar is now broadcasting to all attendees. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the July 28th City Council Mobility Subcommittee. Thank you all so much for joining us. We're going to start our meeting off today with a round of quick introductions. Bob, why don't you go ahead and go first?
Sure. Bob Nisbet, City Manager, Half Moon Bay.
And then Adam?
Sure. Adam Eisen, Mayor, Half Moon Bay.
And then Councilwoman Penrose?
Deborah Penrose, City Council, Half Moon Bay.
Great. And then if we can go to staff, Maz, why don't you go?
Sure. Maz Yerbos-Renia, City Engineer for Half Moon Bay.
Veronica?
Hi, Veronica Bostonak, Sustainability Analyst, City Half Moon Bay.
And let's go ahead and jump to our voice partners. So Anne?
Hi, my name's Anne Banchoff, and I'm at the Stanford Prevention Research Center. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for the Our Voice Initiative.
Go ahead, Kane.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kane. I'm a research assistant with Our Voice.
And then I also, go ahead, Jessica, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessica Essen, and I'm with the Government and Community Affairs at SAMTrans.
And then last but not least, we're going to go ahead and run through our community volunteers. I'm just going to go based on how you all are arranged on my screen. So Marita, why don't you go first?
I'm Marita Death. I'm a longtime resident of Half Moon Bay.
Paul?
Paul Gator. I'm not quite as long-term resident as Marita.
Anna?
Hi, I'm Anna McMillan. I'm not as long as both of them, but that's because I'm young.
And Joaquin?
Joaquin Jimenez with the ALAS here in Half Moon Bay and also the Latino Advisory Council in Half Moon Bay and longtime resident.
Oh, and I guess I should introduce myself for the record as well. My name is Jennifer Chong. I am the Public Works Program Manager for the City of Half Moon Bay. So, Bob, the only item on tonight's agenda, or this afternoon's agenda, is a presentation from the Our Voice team to the Mobility Subcommittee. So if there's no other comments, I was thinking we could just jump right in.
Jump in. Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Sure. And so thank you, Kane, for volunteering to be our webmaster today. When you're ready, go ahead and share the slides. Oh, and thank you to Veronica for keeping an eye on our chat and our participants. If anyone is on the line that needs help, Veronica is manning that, so feel free to ask. All right. And this is my first time actually facilitating one of these meetings. So can everyone see the slides? Just me.
Yes.
Okay. Good. I see nods. Thank you so much. So again, welcome to today's subcommittee meeting. We only have one item on the agenda today, which is to provide this Our Voice pilot project presentation. Slide, Kane. So today's presentation will be provided primarily in two parts. I'll be providing introductions and then a quick project overview before turning it over to our community partners who will be providing their project findings and recommendations. We'll then go ahead and open the floor for a discussion and any potential next steps. So before going any further, I know that we did just do a round of introductions, but I also wanted to just acknowledge the team that's been working on this project, specifically our community volunteers, 4 of which are here today to provide this presentation. So Paul Gator, Joaquin Jimenez, Marita Leith, and Anna McMillan. The two other community participants that have worked on this project, unfortunately, that couldn't be here are Samuel Lopez and Socorro Aguilar, but they contributed to this presentation, and we just want to acknowledge them publicly. I also just want to say a huge thank you to the Stanford support team, so Anne and Kane, who have been extremely instrumental and supportive in getting us here. So thank you all so much for your graciousness and your time to get us this far. Go ahead, Kane. So I thought, Kane, I think we might have skipped a slide. There we go. So I thought a good place for us to start off is just to talk really quickly about what this Our Voice approach is. I know that most of us probably haven't heard of this before. So the Our Voice approach was developed by Stanford as a community engagement approach. It's intended to empower community members to collect data that they can then use to make recommendations and drive change in their local communities. This approach utilizes a phone app called the Discovery Tool mobile app, where our community members can go around and take pictures of different features in the community that they want to make comments on. And then they can either tag it as a positive feature, a negative feature, both. And they can also add text comments or audio comments to basically talk about why they took that picture and why they think it's important. Once the data collection period is over, that information is then given back to those community members who then review their information, categorize it, and identify themes that they then just bring to decision makers in the community and report back, which is what brings us here today. Kate? So really quickly, how did we get here? Where did this project come about? Staff was introduced to the Stanford Our Voice team in December as a potential follow-on to our climate action and adaptation outreach pilot project. The council may recall that we had another big pilot project that closed out in December, and Sandy Winters from Senior Co-Siders actually introduced us to the Our Voice team and said this might be a great follow-up for some community engagement in the future. We began discussing, having a pilot project, and we decided to focus on transportation because not only is that a city council priority, but it's also something that affects every member of our community throughout the coast side. Unfortunately, we were ready to go live with this project in March, and we were going to present it to the community when the project had to go on hold because of COVID-19. After a couple months, Stanford came and reached back out to us and said that they had developed the capacity to facilitate one of these projects 100% remote, and asked if we were interested in pursuing another project. And so we said yes, and we kind of revamped the project. We scaled it back significantly. So originally we were thinking about working with 15 to 20 individuals for a pilot project. And we realized with some of the obstacles that COVID-19 was presenting that we needed to temper expectations just a little bit and scale things back. And so we focused on working with a diverse group of 6 individuals, and also, acknowledged upfront that this was something brand new in every single sense of the project. Now, not only were we trying out a brand new approach to community outreach, but we were now having to incorporate brand new technology, brand new facilitation methods, meeting methods, really just every aspect of this project was going to be a pilot, and we just had no idea how it was going to turn out. And so with that foundation in mind, we officially kicked off the project on June 11th, 2020. And so I only have 2 more slides, and then I'm happy to pass it over to our community members, but hopefully this is providing some context that will hopefully help our mobility subcommittee receive this information. But when we started this project, we really had 3 primary goals, which was 1, evaluate the fit of the Our Voice approach in their discovery tool. Again, we had no assumptions about whether our community would like this approach, if they would like the tool, and whether or not it would work for our community, our unique community on the coast side. Again, because of COVID-19, we identified as a project goal figuring out how do we facilitate these kinds of engagement strategies? How do we meet people where they're at when we can no longer physically go to them? And what are some tools that we can use to continue to be accessible to our community members and to hear from them? And then finally, we did still want to hear from our community members about their transportation experiences. And we gave them the prompts, what features in your community make it easier or harder to get around without a car? And so that was the prompt that they used when they were using the app to collect data. And so staff's recommendation to the mobility subcommittee today is to, one, please receive this report from our team, and thank you for providing them this opportunity to present to you today, and also to direct staff to work with Stanford on a proposal to scale this project up. We think that, especially with COVID-19, that this is the new engagement strategy, and that it's important that we invest the time and the effort to develop this kind of engagement tool. And Stanford has graciously offered to work with us on a larger scale project. And so we are recommending that the subcommittee ask staff to continue to work on this effort and to try to engage with even more people in the community. And so with that, I'm happy to pass it over to our community members who are going to present their findings from the project.
Okay, I'll take this on from here. Thank you, Jennifer. So I'm Paul Gator. I've lived in Half Moon Bay in the Frenchman's Creek area since 1997. And I've been a member of the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee since the council set it up in 2017. And on that committee, if I represent anybody, I represent the slower end of the bike riding community, road biking community. Can you step on, Kane? So just to put a bit more detail into what we did in the 10 days between when we sort of got the project set up and when we came back with what we were seeing. So we all have the Discovery tool on our devices, and we went out and took photographs around the community of things that we were seeing that were illustrations of how it may be easier to get around without a car and things that would provide barriers to getting around by car. So the app allows you to take photographs, as Jennifer says. You can add comments into that as to why you think this is an important location to highlight. And then there's also an emoji button that you can use to say this is something that's good or something that's bad, or in some cases, both. And I think I was also the only one who tested out the audio capability of the app to record your comments, your voice comments. So it's been tested for capability to understand the English accent. And all the time we were thinking about what are the question that Jennifer set up so nicely: what makes it easy or hard to get around without a car in town? And we identified 5 major themes, and we'll get into more detail of that in a second. Next slide, Kane. So from the comments that were downloaded for us in the app, and we went through a couple of workshops with Anne and Kane to sort of start to drill down into some themes. We saw some areas that we see as being good in terms of encouraging people to get out of their cars, and areas where we could do better. So on the good column, there are traffic calming measures around town, and in some neighborhoods, like in mine, in Frenchman's Creek, which slow down traffic. We have great assets with the Coastal Trail and the Naomi Patridge Trail, and both of those are definitely getting more use since the COVID outbreak. We have sidewalks on Main Street and in some neighborhoods, which help to protect pedestrians from conflict with traffic. We have lots of bus stops in quite good locations, and we're seeing more bike racks and other amenities around town that are helping and encouraging people to get on their bikes. Thinking particularly of the toolkits that are at the library, and I know there's one here in Frenchman's Creek too. Areas where we think at a high level we could do better. One is that there is no safe trail to get from the Moonridge community into town if you want to bike it, or if you're really energetic and want to walk it. It's a long way. So the only option is to walk on the hard shoulder of Highway 1, which is not safe. We see areas where there's some quite good signage about trails, and then other areas where it's not so good. And we'll come back to that in more detail in a minute, as well as issues occasionally with maintenance of trails. And we think that if trails aren't well maintained, then that discourages people from using them. There are some crossing challenges on Highway 1, which I know you're all highly aware of, and we've discussed this a lot in BPAC and then the Planning Commission as well. But we flagged those again. We think some of the bus stop locations could be improved, particularly south of town. And many of our bus stops are just bus stops. There's no seat, there's no shelter, there's no posted schedule at many of them. So bear those thoughts in mind, and we'll move into more detail of the themes that we identified. So there were eventually 5, and there's overlap between these. None of those are really standalone. So you can see here the order in which we're going to present them. I'll talk about signage, and I'll hand over to Anna for trail maintenance, to Joaquin for bike safety. I'll come back and talk about pedestrian safety, and then Marita will finish with bus stops. So next slide. And each of the sections have essentially the same structure. We'll show you high level what our recommendations are. Some of these are very specific, some are quite broad. And then we'll show you some pictures from the app of what led us to identify these as themes and as recommendations. So on signage, we feel like there can be improvements made on the trails, the coastal trail, the Naomi Patridge Trail, and also the trail that goes under the highway at Pilarcitos Creek, to make it clear where that trail is going, and maybe some areas that someone on that trail may want to go and visit. We also see some areas where there's quite dangerous conflict. I see this a lot as a road cyclist, conflict between road users and the trail in terms of turning off the road and crossing over the trail. You see this in several places on the Naomi Patridge Trail, and also where Wavecrest comes off of Highway 1. And again, this is discouraging people from using the trails on their bikes because of the danger from the traffic. Next slide. Okay, so this is, you got sat through a bunch of slides and you're like, okay, so what is this tool? So this is essentially a representation of what the Stanford team gave back to us after we'd taken all our photographs and made all our comments, and they summarized them, collated them, and put them into this format. So most of our slides will have this format of the photograph that one of us took, the location, and whether we see it as being something that's a good feature or a bad feature for the community overall. So this is the Pilarcitos Creek Trail that goes under the highway. From my observation and other observations, there's no indication where this goes. And in fact, there's probably also no indication that it's even the Pilarcitos Creek Trail. So there's some issues with this trail, and we'll get onto that later on, but this is a link between the west side of the highway and downtown that we think could be significantly improved by improving signage. Next. Thanks, Kane. And this is where the Naomi Patridge Trail going south of town is almost at the end of the trail before it dead ends at the moment. So this is the turn on to Wavecrest and Cameron's. This is, and some of the intersections at Casa del Mar are similar. There's fairly high speed traffic coming down Highway 1, turning right with conflict for people on bikes and anybody who may be walking there. So we feel like signage could be improved in areas like this by putting some kind of warning signage on the road and or on the trail to make drivers aware of the fact that this is potential conflict, in addition to the stop sign that's already there, which is not enough. So that's signage. And I think after this slide, I'll hand over to Anna to talk about trail maintenance.
Thank you, Paul. My name is Anna McMillan. I live in the Arletta Park neighborhood. I'm also a BPAC representative. I'm the youth representative. I'm going to be presenting the trail maintenance section. We all came up for 3 main recommendations for this section. So our first one was to make improvements to specific trails. And we also came up with some trails like the Pilarcitos Creek Trail. It goes under Highway 1. We thought maybe some brush maintenance, maybe some more signage again. We also thought of the Coastal Trail, especially the section between Kelly and Seymour Bridge, because a lot of people use it. We also especially highlighted the Naomi Patridge Trail because more people have been using it since COVID-19. And as more people use it, it's definitely a good idea to have more maintenance. Our second recommendation is to encourage community groups to adopt and care for a trail. So this is if the city cannot care or maintain all trails, they could try to get other community groups to adopt or maintain other trails. Our third recommendation was to create a system for community members to report need for trail maintenance. We also think that the city may not know all trails that need maintenance or all places. So if a community member saw a trail that needed more maintenance, they could report it if we had a system in place, and the city would know, oh, that trail needs more maintenance. Next. So I have a couple of examples, and our first one, we all picked these out, is that this one is under Highway 1 at Pilarcitos Creek, and as Paul said, signage is kind of an overarching theme in almost every section. And for this one, we also highlighted this trail. And this one is there's homeless camps and it's a bit sketchy and it would discourage people from using this trail. So if that could be a little bit more cleaned up, people would be more encouraged to use this trail. Next. So this is a picture of a pothole in the middle of Coastal Trail. This one is also a trail we highlighted in our first slide, but I use the Coastal Trail a lot. And I know that a lot of people in Arletta Park use it a lot. But I feel like everyone all over town uses the Coastal Trail a lot too. And since more people use it, there should definitely be more maintenance. And this is an example of something that could be maintained even better. Next. Also, so we also highlighted the Naomi Patridge Trail as a trail that could be maintained better. It is a great trail, but it's getting more use since COVID-19. And as more people use it, it should definitely be maintained again. And the problem here, I don't know if you can see in the picture, but it's getting a bit overgrown and there's some loose gravel. Next. So this is a great bike path. And I know we didn't highlight this in our first slide as one of the trails that need more maintenance, but it is still an important trail. And it's an example of something that is a great trail. But as you can see, it's getting a bit overgrown on the sides. And if the city maybe doesn't know about this, if we had that system in place, the community member who saw this could report it, and then the city would know, oh, this needs more maintenance. Also, if the city could, for some reason, not maintain this, they could try to do the Adopt a Trail program, and then they wouldn't have to maintain it. Another community group could help. But yeah, so this is my final slide. This is kind of the end, and I'm going to hand it off to Joaquin.
Okay, you hear me now? Yeah. Hello, again, Joaquin Jimenez. As you know, I'm a avid bicycle rider around town, and I like to take my walks also around town. So when I was invited by Jennifer for this pilot, I think it came up perfect timing. As you know, it's been mentioned about with COVID-19. We are see more people on bicycles. More community members are walking, in town. So, these are some of the recommendations that we have that we would like to address to the city. Identifying kind of like a low cost pilot about marking our streets here in Half Moon Bay downtown, especially Main Street, with bike lanes for safety. There's a program out of the Better Bikes program, with San Jose, that we can look into it, about promoting like safety for us who ride our bicycles around town. Also, and maybe eventually complete a upgrade our streets have around Half Moon Bay, maybe promoting more bicycle use for students here and also for the parents. So this is some of the things that we should have. So safety routes to schools. A while back, I heard from City Council member Radek about making Half Moon Bay a greener community. So this comes to mind, finding routes, safe routes for students to ride to school that would be less traffic on our streets, less traffic on the highways. So promoting that. With that, collaboration, with workshops, education workshops, with different groups, different organizations. But we also have like the Silicon Valley bicycle programs, and also with the sheriff's office about education, about safety, about signals, about helmets, proper helmets, proper helmet use, lighting if we need them on our bicycles. Somebody that we can work with in these workshops, of course, will be done for the whole community. One thing that we don't have, and it could also be used, is having maps. Having maps, here in our community to let us know where the trails are leading us to. Paul mentioned one of the trails that goes under the bridge or Highway 1. It doesn't let you know that trail actually connects to Main Street and 92. So that's something that we can actually set around town in several locations. So when we have visitors in Half Moon Bay, they know where those trails are leading to. So that's another thing that we could actually do. Safe routes for community. And Anna mentioned the trail that goes under the bridge, again, from the Safeway Shopping Center that connects to Main Street, just to be safer for our community members to use. And of course, we have several bicycle shops in Half Moon Bay that we can also work with to address these issues. We need more locations. I don't see it. Tools for bicycles. As I know, there's only 2 in town. There's one outside the public library, and there's another one at Seymour and Highway 1 where we could use in case our bikes break down. So we need that. So in distributing, like I say, those maps, where the trails are leading to. It'd be great just to having them set at various locations in our community. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have here's our Main Street. We have cyclists on the bridge, cyclists right in front of City Hall on the sidewalk, and this is Main Street right in front of Acuña Country Store. The idea to do a low-cost, temporary marking, it'd be about marking our streets. Also, by a way of signage to let vehicles know that they might find bicycles, on the street. It'd be safer for children, so we can maybe not use if you ride your bicycle on the bridge. If you encounter people walking on the bridge, it's very hard. If they don't know how to control the bike, it could be it's dangerous. I've been in that situation. I'm the one who took the picture. So, it is something that we can mark our streets, for bicycles, to watch out for bicycles. There's, things that, temporary marking that we can be wash off, with a high water pressure, and something to work on. Next slide, please. Okay, this is right in front of Burger King, Naomi Patridge Trail. This street connects the bridge to go over Pilarcitos Creek to Pilarcitos Street, and also continues to go the trail that goes under the bridge of Highway 1. As you can see, the sidewalk is not very wide. When you encounter a cyclist on this sidewalk, either the person has to step off the sidewalk, or the bicycle has to jump off the sidewalk. So this is something that we need to work on, and there's a location for a map, public maps that could be set near the garbage cans to let you know where those trails are leading to. If you continue over the bridge to Pilarcitos Street, it will lead you to Poplar, to Kelly Avenue, and on to the trail, Naomi Patridge Trail that goes south. And maybe also, some bicycle tool station being needed. Next slide, please. There's another one. As you see, Naomi Patridge Trail, that's the end of it. Right as you pass Cameron's, south of Cameron's, that's the end of the trail. And our recommendation is to, again, to publish, to have a map set, where this trail will take you to, and also to extend this trail to Miramontes Point Road, to make it a safer trail for Moonridge residents, and also for Cañada Cove residents, maybe Ocean Colony residents, and the trail will extend to the Ritz-Carlton Hotel, and also to the trail, I don't know if it's called the Naomi Patridge Trail, that goes on the bluffs south of Half Moon Bay, about 3 miles south, and there's no signage, there's no maps where this trail is going to take you to. So, and it is a dangerous intersection. Of course, Paul already talked about having the signage about watching for bicycles and for pedestrians. And I ride all these trails, so I know how dangerous it is. And Paul, we'll continue to the pedestrian safety.
Yep, thanks, Joaquin. So in terms of pedestrian safety, we identified some areas where we think that safety for pedestrians in crossing busy streets can be enhanced. And we also saw a couple of areas where we feel that usage of the trail may be improved if there's light there, so lighting there, so it feels safer for people using those trails at the nighttime. And then thirdly, going back to the Naomi Patridge Trail again, which, as Joaquin just showed you in that picture a couple of pictures ago, sort of takes this rather weird route down the back of Burger King and across the bridge and into the neighborhood. And a lot of people do not take that. They actually just go down the highway. So we think that there should be at least some thought going into whether we should actually extend that trail across the Pilarcitos Creek Bridge by using the shoulder of Highway 1. So I'll show you some examples of that. Thanks, Kane. So this is an example of, this is at Kelly and Highway 1, where there are bushes that are getting overgrown by the intersection, which makes visibility poor for pedestrians trying to use this crossing, and also for people with disabilities. So we feel that there's an improvement. And this is an example. There are plenty of others where visibility for crossings is not great. Next. There are areas that I know very well, been living north of town, where crossing Highway 1 is really dangerous. This is an example. This is a bus stop near Casa del Mar. If you live on the east side of Highway 1 in the Grand Avenue Spindrift area, and you want to go to the beach, which is one reason why you live there, you've got to take your life in your hands and get across Highway 1 in order to do that. And so I know well from, again, discussions we've had at BPAC that this is challenging to get crossings in here, but it really is a need, we think, for our community to get people safely across Highway 1. Next. And another area, hotspot, which we recognize is outside the city's control, but we think it's just important to keep highlighting how dangerous it is for people, and these are primarily visitors, crossing Highway 1 at Surfers Beach, despite the fact that there's a perfectly good crossing at Coronado. So many people just do exactly what these people are doing here and walk across in the middle of the street. So we feel that we want to encourage the city to continue sort of talking with the county and with the authorities to try and get some way of making this crossing safer. Next. And then here's, once again, the Pilarcitos Creek Trail. It feels unsafe at night and probably gets very little usage at night and could be improved with some lighting. And next is that's all we have on pedestrian safety for now. So I'll hand it over to Marita to talk through our thinking around bus stops.
You did. Okay, can you hear me? I'm Marita Leth. I lived on the coastside for 40 years. I live on the south end of town, and I now represent the seniors. I have a special interest in the seniors that are no longer driving and are depending more and more on public transportation. I'm a member of the Transportation Committee on the Commission of Aging in San Mateo County, and I've also attended several meetings on transportation at the Senior Coastsiders. Today I'm going to be talking about bus stops. And our general recommendations are to consider the rider convenience and safety when assigning the location of bus stops. I will show some slides on examples of this, but the one that is close to where I live is the bus stop at Redondo Beach and Highway 1, which is roughly about a 15-20 mile walk along the highway in order to get to the closest residence. And there's also another example at Casa del Mar. If we consider the convenience of and also the safety of the bus stops, there's a potential to increase the transit ridership. The second thing that we have a concern with is the bus stop don't have schedules posted. A lot of, especially seniors, are not very comfortable navigating through apps and would prefer to see a posted schedule. We also feel like adding benches and shelters, especially the major bus stops that are located at the shopping centers, would be a big bonus. The more general recommendation we have is to consider adding a weekend shuttle going to downtown beaches and restaurants, starting in the south end by Cañada Cove and Moon Ridge, and working up to Princeton, stopping at the senior center, housing developments, hotels, and a general parking area for visitors. This would alleviate some of the traffic and parking problems that we have seen, especially at the beaches this summer. Okay, my first slide shows a bus stop that's located at Frenchman's Creek. We're looking at the left slide. This is a bus stop that stops in front of a major housing development, which is great. And there's also a light for crossing the highway there. On the right side of the slide, you see a picture of a bus stop that's located on the east side of Highway 1, which is across the highway from Casa del Mar development, which is on the west side. And this is an example of a bus stop where the riders would have to cross a dangerous highway in order to get to the bus stop. Next slide. This bus stop is the one I mentioned that is located on Highway 1 by Redondo Beach Road. It is half a mile north of the northbound bus stop. It necessitates a dangerous walk along Highway 1 with no sidewalks to get to the closest business or residence. There's really nothing there, and it's not a safe walk on the highway to get to housing development or any kind of business. The next slide will show my recommendation to fix this problem. If the bus stop was relocated half a mile south, it would be next to a hotel, a restaurant, there's a church, several businesses, and a major housing development. Ocean Colony is on the same block with several over 500 residents. There's also a crosswalk with lights to get to the other side of the highway, and the bus stop going in the other direction. And there's also a large nursery there. We feel this would be a good example of relocating a bus stop that would add potential for ridership of the transit. At the south entrance of town, the bus stops in front of the fire station. I don't know how many firemen ride the bus to the fire station, considering their schedule. But if the bus stop was relocated about a half a block north of there, it would stop in front of the Coastal Rep Theater. That would benefit the seniors, and the youth would benefit when they're attending camps there. And as the slide on the right shows, there's a bench already in front of the Coastal Rep, which indicates that there are people that are waiting for pickups or rides before or after a show there. So that would really be a good place to put a bus stop. And this concludes, there's one more slide. And this is the bus stop at CVS and Safeway. It's a great place for a bus stop. It would really be great if there was a bench and a shelter available. As you can see, there are people sitting on the sidewalk waiting for a bus. We also feel like if a schedule was posted there, it would be very beneficial. People that go shopping cannot always time it right so that they're at the bus stop right when the bus is going to arrive, and they may be waiting there some time. And again, a shelter and a bench would be right. This concludes our presentation. Thank you very much for listening to us, and we're happy to take any questions if you have any at this time.
Great. Thank you all so much. Again, thank you so much to our community members for their participation. As I think is evident in the presentation, they did a lot of work. They did a lot of community footwork and went out and did all of this work for free. So thank you again on behalf of myself and my team. So I do want to allow Jessica from Samtrans to respond, but maybe before doing that, did either Mayor Eisen or Councilmember Penrose, did either of you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I'll make a comment. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you. Beautiful presentation. I'm touched by the amount of work and projects that you guys have thought of, and all of which make so much sense to me. I am wondering, did you guys get together beforehand at all this presentation and talk about how to prioritize, or did you guys prioritize? Because there's so many good ideas out there, and I'm trying to figure out how do we prioritize which one. So I don't know if you guys took the time to do that yet as a group amongst yourselves and battled it out and came up with a list, or is that really something that we should be focusing on after receiving these recommendations?
So I don't know if a community member, if one of you all want to talk about the process that you all went through in your second meeting. Or if maybe Anne or Kane want to jump in. I know that you all had a facilitated conversation where staff was not present, so I'll give you some freedom to have a candid conversation. Paul, I see your lips moving, but it looks like your mic's not coming through.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a stab at that, and then others on the team can jump in. So yeah, as Jennifer said, she set the project up with us and then stepped away for us to go and collect the data that you saw, and then to have 2 facilitated workshops with Anne and Kane. and we went from 40-something photographs, which were all over the place, to drilling down into themes. We got it down to they originally got it down to 8 themes after we had a brainstorming around what was jumping out, and then at the second time we consolidated further into the 5 themes that you just saw. We did not really attempt to do anything in terms of prioritization. That's kind of wasn't part of our remit in going into this. It's something that we could think about if this project continues, and I can't think of anything else to say about it. Really, we could be done, but it would need another round of facilitation, I think, from the Stanford people to really help us with some kind of prioritization model.
And if I could build off of that really quickly. That's part of where the recommendation from staff is coming from, is that this was really intended just to test out an engagement strategy to see if it worked, and if it's worth putting in more effort to talk to more individuals. And as our pilot project participants actually brought up to me, they're saying, before we actually move on any of these items, it might be good to get a little bit more feedback from more people, which is where the recommendation of working with Stanford for a larger proposal to do a larger project to see if the rest of the community kind of aligns with the recommendations from this group. Definitely as part of that proposal, we could build in a prioritization workshop. So take this project even a step further and have another facilitation. So that's definitely a direction that the council could provide for us. And then, yeah, Councilmember Penrose, I see your hand.
Yeah.
I am very, very impressed with the work that everybody has done. This is right on target for what we need community engagement for. These are on the street, people in actual danger, people fighting traffic, people trying to stay safe, trying to keep their neighbors safe. And this is incredibly important. The only point I wanted to make was that since the problem is not one problem, but multiple problems, and it's going to be solved with many stakeholders. We're going to need the county, we're going to need Caltrans, we're going to need Public Works, but beyond that, we're also going to need community engagement, because I don't think, especially in these days of COVID-19, that the city has the wherewithal to fix the problems. I don't think that's a possibility. It doesn't mean they can't contribute, but I don't think we have the public works staff, for instance, to go out and maintain our coastal trails. I like the idea of more community involvement so that we can get some punch behind the number of people that are involved, and that will bring us more people who are willing to maybe take responsibility, for instance, for a portion of the coastal trail or a portion of another trail. I think that's good. The ideas about lighting, that's an expense. So we may be thinking in terms of getting some sort of grant money involved in this. I don't know how that would work, but I do think it's going to take, if this is going to be successful, and I think it needs to be successful since it's so critically important when we're talking about kids coming from Moon Ridge trying to get to school, for instance. That to me is one of the biggest failures that we have in our town, is we can't protect our children. They're out there on Highway 1 trying to get to school. It's outrageous. So if we want to make a dent in this, I think the idea of extending this the next step and going back to Stanford and saying, yes, let's make a larger pilot program out of this so that we can get more people involved and get more stakeholders involved as well. But I am very impressed. It's just been delightful listening to all of you.
Joaquin, I see you.
Yeah, I have a comment for our city staff and Mayor and Dr. Penrose. Would you be interested in a low-cost budget proposal pilot to be presented to you for these ideas that we have, for these recommendations that we have for our community, for our safety, for pedestrian, for bicycle riders and our buses? Would you be interested in doing another pilot where we can actually introduce a low-cost budget?
I had thought that the idea was to continue as Stanford and do the project through Stanford. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're correct, Councilmember Penrose. And so, Joaquin, maybe I can provide some additional details. But the conversation that I've been having with the Stanford team is to work with them to create a proposal that we can hopefully take back to their funders to fund a larger round of this project. And also to develop the proposal so that if, for whatever reason, Stanford is unable to fund the project, we can go to other philanthropy groups to fund this. And so Anne has graciously offered to support this effort, and she has a lot of experience. And if anyone has questions about how exactly that works, I am going to be leaning on her expertise for that. But yeah, so there is intention to definitely do another round of this as long as the mobility subcommittee is supportive of that. And Adam, I apologize. I saw you coming off mute, and I think I kept calling on other people. So did you have something else you wanted to add?
No, I'm good. I wanted to add some color to my comments a little bit more instead of just asking a question, but Deborah covered it. I'm all good. Thank you.
Wonderful. So I think at this time, I do want to open it up to Jessica from Samtrans, because she's spent her time to this afternoon. And I know that there's a lot of really exciting things going on over there. So Jessica, why don't you come off mute and go ahead and give us an update on what's going on at Samtrans?
Sure, happy to. I guess one question I have for you is what would be the most beneficial? I could talk about the specific recommendations, or I could talk just about Samtrans, our process, and what we're doing right now in terms of community engagement and our service and all of that.
I would think it'd be great if you could talk about, I know, the Reimagine Samtrans effort, and maybe if you can tie into how some of those efforts may tie into some of the recommendations that were made by the group.
Yeah, absolutely. So nice to meet you all. My name is Jessica Epstein. I'm with Samtrans. And So our agency in the fall of 2019 launched a project called Reimagine Samtrans, which is a comprehensive operational analysis. This is a big study that transit districts go through pretty regularly. I think our last one was about 8 to 10 years ago. And what we do is we're doing a wholesale look at our entire system. All the routes, where they go, how frequently they go, what the ridership is, and is this the right network for best serving the community. So that kicked off in fall of 19. We did 2 months worth of outreach. We rode, I saw the Strawflower Shopping Mall. I had people there. We rode the bus. We did a survey, a multilingual survey. We were really all over the county talking to people. We also have stakeholder and technical advisory groups, which the city of Half Moon Bay was invited to participate in. That was plugging along. We closed our first phase. There's supposed to be 3 phases of outreach, and we were supposed to launch our second phase of outreach in May of 2020. But obviously COVID happened and we all went into shelter in place in March of 2020. That had a dramatic impact on our bus ridership. We lost about 70% of our ridership immediately. That has actually started to climb back a little bit. We had dropped from 250,000 riders, what is that? I think weekly, it's weekly, to 75,000. We're now back up to 96,000. And what's interesting though, Half Moon Bay is a fraction of our overall ridership, because countywide, the graph looks identical. So we had the exact same drop in Half Moon Bay for ridership that we had countywide, and we're also seeing the same increase countywide. So we immediately had to cut back a significant amount of our service, really focusing on areas, getting rid of anything that looked redundant, anything with lower ridership, and really trying to focus on areas where we knew essential workers were and where we knew we'd start to have ridership. We then had a next round of adding service back in. We have very strict social distancing requirements on the bus. So in order to maintain the level of service for the riders, it actually takes more buses than it would historically because we can put so few people on a bus. And then in August of this year, we're doing another round of recovery in terms of increasing service back in. I checked, it doesn't look like anything is increasing in Half Moon Bay. You guys got actually pretty substantial increase in May of this year. So we've been running a decent amount of service out to Half Moon Bay comparatively. So we are now on the road to recovery. How do we get Samtrans back to where it was before? So right now we are still dealing with emergency issues. But Reimagine Samtrans is still real. Reimagine Samtrans is still very much happening. So that we don't entirely know when. We are relaunching. We need to hit a certain level of service that we can maintain before we can start looking at the routes. And one of the significant parts of the routes is stop spacing and where bus stops are. So in terms of the questions around bus stops, the way we usually, most of the bus stops that we have are essentially historical grandfathered bus stops. We really only put in new bus stops when we are creating a new route or rerouting a bus stop. So the way we know a historical bus stop isn't working quite right, and as you know, it's a huge system countywide. We hear from cities. I actually recently had a whole back and forth with Colma about whether we could put a bus stop somewhere they asked for. And so we are more than happy to take in any requests for a moved bus stop. There's a lot of factors we look at in terms of the location of the bus stop. Again, there's the historical, there's ridership. Walk distance is actually between stops is an important factor. And we can't have stops that are bunched too close together and then too far of a distance until the next stop. We're happy to look at that now. I will say, unless it's an obvious change, it will probably have to wait to Reimagine Samtrans to move a stop because there is, a fair amount of work that goes into the analysis and a fair amount of cost that goes into the change. So that is one of those things that, again, happy to take the question now, but it may be better for Reimagine Samtrans. let's see, what were some of the other issues? There was the bus stop location. Signage at the bus stops. Yeah, so that's another one where I wanted to say that it is, we maintain bus stops, obviously all over the county. Every bus stop, some bus stops only have one route. Some bus stops have upwards of 10 routes. So a decision quite some time ago was, and we also changed our system traditionally in the pre-COVID land. We changed our bus system can be changed 3 times a year. So we'll make schedule adjustments 3 times a year, which is one of the reasons why we don't post the schedules, is because the work and cost that would go into keeping those perpetually updated would be very, very high. And you would have some stops where it would just essentially be a wall of schedules. And many stops, as you know, are just a pole. So there's really no way for us to actually post this stop. But I do want to point out, yeah, we know very much so, we have all the information online, but we know that's a hurdle for many people. You can always call our customer service number, the schedule. And the customer service number is also multilingual. So you can call for multiple languages, you can call and get, the best information on where the bus is. One project that we are working on, it is unfortunately taking a little longer than we'd hoped, but to improve our real-time information, we were retrofitting our buses with cellular so that we can actually get not just, vaguely when the bus is coming, but really down to the second when the bus is coming. So that's a project we're working on.
Jessica, if I could interject really quickly. I know that Bob had a hard stop at 4, and I know you raised your hand, Bob. So I just want to see if you wanted to say something before you logged off.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for this presentation today for the subcommittee. Yeah, I do have to log off. I have a 4 o'clock that I'm 5 minutes late for, but I just wanted to raise one point. And Jessica, you were probably just about to hit it because you were on the bus stop theme. But the request for a bench and a shelter at the Safeway Shopping Center, I've heard that one numerous times since I've been the city manager here. And that just seems like a no-brainer to me. I have talked to the owner of that shopping center, and he has said that he's willing to do it. So I don't know where the disconnect is. It seems like if Samtran could provide the shelter, which I'm sure you guys get those right off the shelf. They're like probably 15 grand. He would be willing to put it in. I think he said he put a bench in once and it was vandalized. So he does have that issue. But that, those are his customers. And so obviously he wants to take care of his customers. So he's willing to do it. And seeing people stand there waiting for the bus in the rain, I mean, it just seems like that one, back to the mayor's comments that we should prioritize. That to me is the lowest hanging fruit. That is number one on everything I heard is very important. And I'm a heavy user of the trails as well on my bike. But that one, if we could get a bench and a little shelter there, that would be just incredible bang for the buck for all involved. It's private property. So, if it was city right away, it would be done by now, but it's not city right away. So I just wanted to make that plug. I don't actually have to hear the answer, but I wanted to get that plug in. My apologies to everyone. I am late for my next meeting, but thank you very much to the volunteers for doing all this. And I'm sure the mayor and Councilmember Penrose really appreciated it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. So sorry to have interjected, Jessica, but sure. I think that's a great segue, actually, if you want to respond to Bob's comment, because I know you're just about to get into bus stops.
Yeah. It's interesting, right? We're government, so everything has very different lines, and benches and shelters are actually very different realities for us. I would say, unfortunately, it's not quite as simple as that. And I would be happy, Jennifer, if you want to set up a meeting with you, me, and Bob to actually talk through the shelter installation process. I don't know, it sounds like from what he was saying that a request has gone into Samtrans, has been denied for a shelter there. That's not a request I've ever seen. I'm perfectly happy to carry that request through again to see if it's something that's viable. I would say so we actually don't have a bunch of shelters that we're sitting on. There's 2 types of shelters. You may have seen some green ones outside of Half Moon Bay with advertisements in them, and brown ones inside of Half Moon Bay. The Samtrans board almost a decade ago voted to essentially outsource our shelters because they are very costly for us to maintain. So all the green shelters you see around town, around the county, are run by an external agency, and they get revenue from the as they pay that covers the cost of the shelter, and it takes the cost out from us. There is the issue of vandalism, and trash is actually a really big deal at both benches and shelters. It's something, you know, we basically tell any city that's requesting a bench or a shelter that you will have an increase in this, and it's just a difficulty that has to be dealt with. The brown shelters are maintained by Samtrans. We don't install any brown shelters. We only install the green ones, and those are prohibited in the city of Half Moon Bay based on the city's sign ordinance. So happy to continue that conversation, talk about the pros and the cons, see about availability and options, but that's kind of where we are right now in terms of shelters in Half Moon Bay. But again, more about that. Oh, and benches are much simpler, and they are installed by Samtrans, so we can loop that into the same conversation. But again, it doesn't provide shelter, and it does have the vandalism issue. So I guess then the only last thing I wanted to address was the idea of the shuttle. To get a shuttle, one would be, let's talk about it through Reimagine Samtrans and see if that's one of the service options. The other is the Transportation Authority funds shuttles, and that could be a city-sponsored shuttle that then gets funded through the Transportation Authority. There's a whole call for projects and an application process. I don't know if commute.org does any work out there here out in Half Moon Bay, but they run a variety of shuttles. So that would be an option for a shuttle that wasn't Samtrans, and then Samtrans, that conversation would be happening through Reimagine.
Great.
So happy to answer any questions and obviously continue the shelter conversation.
Councilwoman Bedras?
Yeah, thank you very much, Jessica. It sounds like you're right on top of things. I see a couple of issues. I don't see Half Moon Bay's problems fitting into Samtrans solutions very well. And I think that that's not Half Moon Bay's fault. That's who we are. But I think that when you're talking about moving a bus stop and having to do tremendous amounts of research, I don't see that as something that fits with our town. If we're talking about moving something a half a block to accommodate a huge number of people, that seems straightforward to me. So I would like to see something from Samtrans other than this is the way we do things. Now, that's not your fault. I don't mean to call you on that. At the same time, I have to because there's like a disconnect here. And the disconnect is no one's fault, but it is real. And we have to rely on agencies like Samtrans to try to be a little bit more flexible in how they approach problems that come about in a small city like Half Moon Bay. We are not big on ridership, you know that.
Oh, yeah.
But part of the reason we're not big on ridership is Samtrans. It's not just Half Moon Bay. And with some small changes, we may be able to increase that ridership, which would benefit all of us.
Yeah, I apologize if what I said came across wrong. I'm not saying we're not going to move a stop. We may have the stop in the wrong place. We don't know that until the city flags for us a stop that needs to be moved. Most of the time in the Reimagine process, we're looking at the whole system. But if you have stops that you think should be moved, let me know, and we will take it through our operations planning team. And what happens is they look at the ridership, what's around the bus stop, and they'll usually send out, they do send out people from our bus operations team to assess the stop, see whether, there's a whole bunch of factors that come in, bus turning, what's around the stop, whether there's a location that's good for a stop. But all I'm saying is I can't be like, yes, you get a stop. No, we need to go through an analysis, but we're more than happy to do that at any point. We just wait for the cities to tell us, oh, this stop isn't working out quite right. And then, and we can do that now. And what I'm saying is if looks like it makes sense for a I mean, I guess, I tied it to Reimagine Samtrans. For routes that aren't moving, there's no reason we couldn't move a stop before Reimagine Samtrans kicks back in. You may get some rerouting. I don't know that. I don't think the planners know that yet, but that was not a no. That was a let me know what the stop is and let our technical folks take a look at it and see if it makes sense to move the stop or not.
Thank you. I guess part of my feeling of well, it's a feeling of fear that nothing will happen, is that in the larger picture, when you're doing Samtrans Reimagined pictures, they're not looking at Half Moon Bay. They will include us in it because they have to, but they're not as concerned when you're talking about moving 20 people around as they are when they're moving 150 people around. And we get that, but it's still a problem for us. So I really think that your idea of getting together with Bob and Jennifer and some other folks to really look at our particular issues here is going to be critical if we're going to get anywhere with Samtrans helping us.
Sure. And so the city staff are invited. I've added Jennifer to my list to the technical advisory group for Reimagine Samtrans. We go through a series of individualized meetings, and we did, a fair amount of outreach in Half Moon Bay. I spend a lot of time thinking about the coast and working on issues with the coast. And we had a coast-side study, which then got rolled into Reimagine. So Jennifer in the technical advisory group and the other city are your voice there. We're always happy to have side meetings with any city. And we don't just look at ridership. You have a large number of essential workers. That's one of the reasons that you've maintained a higher amount of service than some of the other areas with higher residents because of the demographics of your community. So I understand. I would say I apologize for probably a historical experience with Samtrans. We are in many ways a brand new agency. We have a lot of brand new staff. We're very excited about this stuff. And so again, you've got your technical advisory group representative. I will have meetings in advance. We are an open book. All that's to say is it has to make sense in the overall system. And we are extraordinarily financially stretched at the moment, which I'm sure you are experiencing as well. 70% loss in ridership, and also we're mostly funded through sales tax. And as we all know, that's taken a huge hit. So I will make no promises, and we have to move slowly given our budgetary constraints. But the one thing I definitely promise you is that it won't get ignored, and it will. The back and forth is what we do. Quite frankly, my team didn't really used to exist, and we are here to make sure that cities get heard. So happy to continue whatever conversation, both inside of Reimagine and outside.
Great. Thank you very much, Jessica.
No problem.
If I could just throw in my support for Jessica as well. I think her coming here, I've been on calls with Jessica about bus stop relocation. She's reached out to me, and we have talked already about making sure that the coast side is well represented on that transit authority and that Reimagine Samtrans study when it happens. And I think just her being here today and sitting through this presentation and representing Samtrans, I think does show hopefully a shift in that relationship. And with the city really working to build some of these essential partnerships that we're going to need to fix some of these pervasive transportation issues on the coast side. So I just want to thank Jessica for being here today.
Yeah, let me jump in. This is Adam, the mayor. So first of all, I wanted to say, Jessica, I appreciate the fact that you are addressing the back and forth of the concerns of each aspect of it. Because I a lot of times you can just listen to a recommendation. You kind of know the stuff isn't doable, and you kind of just are like, oh. But taking the time to educate us as to some of the obstacles that exist, I appreciate you taking that time. And then I just want to back Deborah Penrose, of course, as well. I agree, on both sides here that, Half Moon Bay is not the rest of San Mateo County. We do have a unique scene here and ridership. And so I do appreciate both sides. I just want to I think it's great that we're talking about both parts of this openly like this. So thank you both.
And I recognize that, we're at 4:18. I want to be respectful of folks' time, but I do know that Moz wanted to provide a quick update for some of the city's responses as well, just so that all on the call are aware of some of the efforts we're already going through that we hope will address some of the concerns that were brought up by the group today.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everyone. First, I wanted to thank the team. I think the Stanford team, our volunteers, everybody has done a great job. One person I really want to thank is Jennifer for her work on this program. When she brought this opportunity to me, of course, the engineer in me was terrified, but I was really excited about going through this process. And then especially after all the health concerns and the health orders that came out, it just highlighted how much of an importance this program and this method of communication can be. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer. I'll make just a few brief comments, and I'm also happy to answer any questions and anybody may have as well. But I do want to also mention that I do appreciate the data that we've received, even from this small sample size, because it does help. It helps me in doing my job in a few different ways. First of all, it helps us with our current projects. For example, this issue of allowing cyclists to be aware of sudden ends to trails. That was actually a topic that came up from Paul when we were having a conversation about the Highway 1 North design project. So again, things like this really do help when I'm going through our current projects. The other thing it does is also helps to when we're looking at opportunities for grant applications. Having this type of community feedback, having this document itself is a huge resource for us, because we can utilize these as our engagement method with our community. And it really does increase our chances with potential funding sources. So again, even this small sample size is going to help us in the long run. And if we do more, we can certainly use it to help our case as we go forward. So thank you for the data that's been provided so far. I also wanted to touch a little bit on that CVS shelter, because since everybody's talked about it, I just want to mention that this was something, just that what Bob mentioned earlier, was that it was something that was brought up. And we did do a brief exchange with Samtrans probably about a year ago now, where we started looking at this potential. But I'm happy that Jessica's on board and her team. I've worked in San Mateo County for about 6 years now, and coordination with Samtrans over the last year, a little over a year, has really changed. And so I do want to mention that I've noticed it as a staffer in San Mateo County myself as well. We'll certainly look forward to continuing our work. Looking forward to future collaborations. We will take the ideas being presented again. This is great information for staff to take back and see how we can better serve our community. So thank you all. Really appreciate it.
And with that, unless anyone else has any additional comments, if I could summarize, I think, what I've heard, which is that this was overall a very successful pilot project, and emphasis on the word pilot. And, it is worth scaling it up, putting in some effort, and doing a thorough debrief to see how do we improve this process in the era of COVID to continue engaging with our community and to get that critical feedback that we need. So I'll plan to continue to do that with the Stanford team that's still on board to support. It also sounds like there might be a couple quicker wins that we might actually be able to pursue just based off of this conversation and some of the recommendations that have been provided. And so, Jessica, I'll reach out to you. We'll get a meeting set, and we'll see maybe what some potential solutions for the bus stops that we could pursue maybe in the short term as we scale up this pilot project for the future. And again, we'll continue to work on this project and debriefing it and making sure that we ramp up for the next round. So to the subcommittee members, our intent is to create a proposal that outlines, based on the feedback from our participants, to put something together that will really outline what our intent is for the larger program, and to bring that back to you in the fall. I think I've gotten enough confirmation from the both of you that that's something that you would support, but I would just like to give you both an opportunity to veto it if that's not the direction that you'd like us to go. Councilmember Farmers, I see your thumbs up. Adam, if you're there, is that okay with you as well?
Well, yeah, and I'd like to see the proposal. I mean, at this point, just like Samtrans, we're all about the money at this point. So I just want to make sure that we've got it in our budget, all the different aspects, everything's tight. We got to take a look at everything before we approve anything. But yes, I like the thought process.
Great. So I think with that, unless there's any other comments, again, I just want to thank the participants. Anna had to run, but she said thank you all for providing her with this opportunity. Ann and Kane from Our Voice are still on the line, Jessica from Samtrans. Thank you all again for participating in this project and for taking the time today to receive this report. Oh, yes, Councilmember Kemp.
One comment. I just want Jessica to know that I was playing the devil's advocate a little bit. It's not that I don't appreciate what you're doing. I absolutely do. I am just amazed that you're here. I did not expect you to be here. So I am very grateful for that. And also I'm very grateful not only to all of the community members who participated, but also to Stanford for the work that they've allowed us to do. So thank you, everyone.
Great.
Beautiful. Thank you all for your time and effort. Appreciate it.
Well, I think that concludes then our mobility subcommittee meeting. We look forward to bringing back a proposal to the subcommittee sometime in the fall. Have a good day, everyone.
All right, great.